had just moved into my new apartment, my very first place. It wasn't the nicest, in fact, it was kind of run down, and the area wasn't the best. But I loved it. I had found an unbelievable deal, paying only $800 a month for rent. Looking back, maybe that should have been my first warning that something wasn't right. But at the time, I just felt lucky. I didn't have much, so moving in was easy. I didn't even need a moving truck, just the back seat of my car. By the end of the night, I had everything set up. An air mattress in my bedroom, my TV and Xbox sitting on the floor in the living room, and my air fryer, my most prized possession, on the kitchen counter. Even after paying for rent and the deposit, I had enough money left for a few beers. As I sat back on my air mattress, drinking my second beer, I felt happy. It wasn't much, but to me it was perfect. That was when I first noticed it. I went to the bathroom, and while sitting on the toilet, I saw something scratched into the wall. "Leave right now." The words were carved in roughly, like someone had done it in a hurry. It made me chuckle, just some leftover graffiti from a past tenant. Still, I decided I'd cover it up with paint when I got paid next week. Now, thinking back, I wish I had run out of that apartment and never looked back. The first couple of days in my new home were great. I was still enjoying my independence, and the message on the wall had completely slipped my mind. After all, it was just some random writing. It didn't mean anything, right? Then, on the third day, I saw another message. "Get out now." Something about it made me uneasy. The first message could have been a joke. But now there was another? Still, I brushed it off. I told myself it was just leftover graffiti from before. The next morning, I went to the hardware store to buy some paint. The girl at the counter caught my attention. Black shoulder-length hair, thick-rimmed glasses. Her name tag read Kaylin. "Hey there, how you doing today?" I asked, trying to sound confident. "Well, I'm here, so that's a start," she replied with a smirk. "Glad to have you here, Kaylin." She raised an eyebrow. "That's not fair. You know my name, but I don't know yours." "It's Bryce," I said, hoping I sounded smooth. "So, Bryce, why the spray paint? You some kind of street artist?" She teased. "Nah, just moved into a new place, covering up some messages someone scratched into the walls." I wasn't sure why I even mentioned it, but it made her chuckle. Before handing me my receipt, she scribbled something on the back. "That's my number, just in case you need help with painting," she joked. I left the store grinning like an idiot. She had actually given me her number. The whole way home, I couldn't stop smiling. But as soon as I stepped inside my apartment, something felt off. I had forgotten my paint in the car, still too distracted by Kaylin. I turned to grab it, but when I pulled the door handle, it didn't budge. I yanked at it a few times before it finally swung open. Weird. I made a mental note to check the door frame later. Maybe it was just old and getting stuck. Later that evening, I stood in my bathroom, spraying over the messages with white paint. A couple of quick bursts and they were gone. I felt like a real adult, fixing up my own place. But then I saw it. Higher up on the wall, almost hidden, was another message. "You're in danger." I laughed. "I don't take advice from walls, idiot," I muttered and sprayed over it. That night, I made chicken nuggets in my air fryer, cracked open another beer, and texted Kaylin. We talked for hours. I wanted to ask her out right away, but I played it cool. At the time, I had no idea that the real nightmare was just beginning. It seemed to work because she asked if she could come over tomorrow night. My face broke into that same overpowering grin I had driven home with when I read that text. But it vanished the moment I went to use the bathroom and saw a new message on the wall. "You need to leave right now." The message was in the same spot where I had seen the first one. This time I was genuinely creeped out. My stomach twisted as I stared at the words. Someone had to be messing with me. I searched my whole apartment, convinced I wasn't alone. I checked the closet, under the sink, even inside the kitchen cabinets. But my place was small. There weren't many places to hide. After a full sweep, I found nothing. I had no explanation. Still, I grabbed the spray can and covered the message again, forcing myself to forget about it. That night, I barely slept. Every little creak or groan from the building made me flinch. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening for anything unusual. But eventually, exhaustion took over and I drifted off. The next morning, I groggily checked the bathroom wall. To my relief, it was bare. No new messages. I sighed, deciding I must have just not noticed the last one before moving in. Or maybe someone had broken in before and left those messages. Either way, they were gone now. That evening, Kaylin came over. She barely stepped inside before making fun of my empty apartment. "Wow, loving the whole stranded on a deserted island vibe," she teased. I laughed, embarrassed. "I call it functional minimalism." She smirked. "It's called You Need Furniture." We spent the night drinking beer, sharing hits from her bong, and watching Night of the Living Dead on my tiny TV. When she told me it was one of her favorite movies, I had to stop myself from proposing on the spot. At one point, she got up to use the bathroom. When she came back, she was giggling. "You still haven't painted over the wall? I know you bought the paint." I frowned. "What do you mean? I covered it yesterday." She raised an eyebrow. "Well, you must not have done a very good job." Her teasing smile didn't last long because I was already getting up. I didn't want her to see the worry creeping onto my face. I walked into the bathroom and froze. There was another message. "This place is hell, you idiot." I exhaled sharply. Not only was the graffiti back, but now it was insulting me. I groaned, grabbed the spray can from under the sink, and covered it up. I wasn't about to let some dumb writing ruin my night with Kaylin. The rest of the evening was perfect. She stayed until after midnight. When I walked her to her car, she kissed me before driving off, leaving me standing there grinning like an idiot. When I got back inside, I grabbed the spray can again and gave the wall another coat. This time, I made sure it was thick, layering the paint until nothing showed through. I told myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe the paint wasn't sticking properly. Maybe the humidity in the bathroom was causing the old scratches to resurface. I convinced myself it made sense and went to bed. The next morning, I checked the wall before heading to work. It was still blank. I smirked. "Serves you right for calling me an idiot," I muttered, grabbing my keys. Then I went to open the door. It was stuck. Again. I yanked on it, planting my foot against the wall to get leverage. After a few tugs, it finally gave way, nearly making me stumble backward. I shook my head. Maybe my $800 apartment wasn't as great as I thought. But it was the reason I met Kaylin, so I figured I could overlook a few flaws. Throughout the day, I texted Kaylin, flirting and making plans for another movie night. 28 days later this time. If she kept loving zombie movies, I might actually have to marry her. When I got home, I decided to tidy up a bit before she came over again. Maybe even get a couple of folding chairs, give my air mattress a break. That's when I heard it. A faint scratching noise, coming from the bathroom. I was mopping my floors when I went into the bathroom and almost screamed out loud. There was a new message on the wall, stretching from the top corner to the bottom on the opposite side in large letters. "Get out and don't come back, Bryce." I painted over it again, wondering what in God's name was going on. This time, I emptied the entire can, my heart pounding so hard I thought I was going to faint. That night, I stayed awake, staring at the wall, daring it to say something. By the time the gray fingers of early morning gently touched the hallway outside the door, I felt completely drained. I knew I had to sleep, so I called into work and dragged my air mattress into the bathroom. I would be damned if whoever was doing this was going to keep messing with me. I slept fitfully, opening my eyes every couple of hours to inspect the wall. As I lay there, I considered the messages. They kept telling me to leave. Maybe apartment maintenance or someone else with a key was sneaking in. Whatever the reason, I didn't care. The place could be haunted for all I cared, but I wasn't about to be run out of my home. Some stupid writing on the wall wasn't going to hurt me. I woke up as the sun was going back down, knowing I needed to get the folding chairs from my car before Caden came over. I glanced at the wall before moving my air mattress back to my bedroom. Still no new messages. I walked to my front door and went to open it, but it was stuck again. I planted my foot on the wall next to it and heaved. Still stuck. I angrily kicked it so hard I hurt my foot, then planted both feet on the wall, straining as hard as I could to rip the thing open. Finally, it gave way, sending me falling backward, my shoulders slamming against the wooden floor hard enough to knock the air out of me. I went out to my car, grabbed the chairs, and as I carried them back, I decided it was time to start looking for a new place. It wouldn't be easy, but I could survive an extra couple $100 a month in rent. I just have to buy less beer. Back inside, I set up the chairs, then went to use the bathroom. I had only been gone for a second, and yet there was another message. Last chance. I screamed in rage and put my fist through the wall. As soon as I did it, I cursed out loud. There goes my security deposit. Caden arrived a short while later, and we had a great time. I made taquitos in my air fryer, grabbed a couple of beers, and we barely watched the movie, making out so furiously I fell out of my cheap folding chair. She laughed and followed me to the floor. It was the best night I'd ever had. I walked her to the car, kissed her goodbye, and went back inside. It was late, and the whole place was quiet. I went into my bathroom to inspect the wall and couldn't comprehend what I saw. No new messages. No hole either. Just a plain wall. I reached out and felt the spot where the hole should be. It was smooth, like nothing had ever been there. That's when I decided I was leaving. I started piling all my stuff by the front door. What little of it there was. I did one last walkthrough to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything and stopped when I reached my bedroom. It was the only room with a window. I stood there, staring at the bright sunlight pouring through it, despite it being the middle of the night. That's when I ran to the front door. All my things were gone. The apartment looked exactly like it had when I first moved in. I tried to force the front door open, but it wasn't just stuck this time. The knob wouldn't even turn. I screamed in terror and ran back to the bedroom, kicking the window as hard as I could. It didn't break. It didn't even shake or make a sound. I struck it again and again. Nothing. Panicked, I pulled out my phone to call 911. The line was busy. Then, I heard the front door unlock and open. Relief flooded me, until I saw who it was. It was me. I watched myself move into the apartment with my meager possessions. I screamed, shouted, even tried to grab myself, but my hands passed right through me. I watched as I arranged my things, set up my air mattress. I even tried running out the door when the other me opened it, only to slam into an invisible wall so hard it bruised my shoulder. I pounded my fists against the walls in frustration. Then, I realized something. I could still touch the apartment itself. Desperate, I started scratching at the paint on the bathroom wall, revealing the bare surface beneath. With shaking hands, I carved out the words, "Leave right now." I watched it play out, the cycle repeating, my past self ignoring my warnings, painting over them again and again. I was stuck, but finally I saw myself reach the breaking point. I punched the hole in the wall, and as Caden left for the last time, I began piling my things by the door. I sat in the living room, sobbing, missing my parents, missing Caden, hell, even missing my air fryer. If that seems weird, clearly you don't own an air fryer. Eventually, I cried myself to sleep. When I woke up, I felt cool air on my face. The front door was open. I reached out tentatively, expecting the invisible barrier, but this time, my hand passed through. I tumbled forward, scraping my palms against the concrete outside. I scrambled to my feet and ran inside, gathering my stuff as fast as I could. I slammed the apartment door shut for the last time, threw everything into my car, and turned the key in the ignition. I didn't stop driving until I reached my parents' house. I found a new apartment a few days later. A little nicer, a little pricier, but I was pretty sure it wasn't a vortex to hell, so that seemed like a fair trade. It's been a month, and I haven't told anyone. Still, last week I drove by the old place, saw a young guy moving in. I considered saying something, but I'd just sound like a lunatic, so I kept driving. Tonight, Caden and I are watching The Shining. Chicken strips are in the air fryer, beers in the fridge. Life is good, but if I see so much as a single letter on the wall here, I'm burning this place to the ground.